Thank you for being here today. The topic I picked to speak to you guys about today probably scared everyone else off. Because I wanted to speak to you guys about growth and the lessons that we learn and can learn from attacks. And not speaking to just physical attacks, but psychic attacks and also metaphoric attacks. And before anyone gets totally attached or averse to the word attacks, it's just one way of naming something. I mean, if you think about it, you go into a martial arts dojo and you get on the mat and all you work with is attacks, you know. And you become familiar with it, so it doesn't have any kind of a adverse effect on your system or any specific attachment. It's just another way to practice. So, speaking first to cultivating a baseline, which I feel all of us here have. You need a baseline of basic self-preservation and self-protection already working in your life to live and work in this world. It's just how this world is. So just being aware of that, we have that initial baseline, whether that means locking your car door, whether that means locking your front door of your house, or more along the lines of energy or, feng shui. You can, have specific stones or objects that you have around your home that, absorbs negative energy and, is kind of like a guarding post, if you will, for that space that you want to keep sacred and special to yourself. So I'm not going to speak too much to the baseline because we all more or less know how to do that. I want to speak to kind of in the terms of using like a playground, if you will. That we move through different levels in this practice and not thinking of this practice with levels of a hierarchy kind of way, but it's more dimensional. So it's a finer of, and it happens right here. There's no getting to, there's no destination per se. It's already happening right here, and it's dimensionally. And when you move through the dimensions, those are the different levels. So I may use those two words interchangeably. And let's say you're at this specific level, call it level 1, and it looks like a playground, and you like this playground. It has the particular slide that you like to go down. It has the perfect height of a swing that you can swing on. It has the right color of a jungle gym that you can climb on. So you like this playground. It's nice. You enjoy it. You have fun there. But then one day, maybe while you're playing in the sand, in the sandbox of this playground, maybe you encounter a bully. Be it a thing, it, or a he or a she, but call it a bully. And comes onto this playground. And for whatever reason, you have no idea why, this bully all of a sudden finds you and proceeds to bully you. And after the situation is done, obviously, you didn't necessarily like the feeling of that being bullied. Maybe you have some scratches or bruises from the bully. And you get kind of maybe upset. It may be something you do is you want to protect yourself for the next time. So maybe you want to build up or shore up your defenses. And that can look like building a wall around your sandbox because you don't want to be bullied and you don't want to get hurt because it hurts. But you have to be aware of the choices and actions you make after encountering a bully, because when you shore up your defenses and place all your energy there, a few things can happen. One is you could barricade yourself in such a way where literally you have given yourself no way out and you have trapped yourself rather than protected yourself. Another aspect is shoring up all your defenses. You've put all this energy into the protecting of yourself instead of just the practice of the practice. That you lose sight on other alternatives that are available to you. You get kind of drawn into a specific focal point and get a narrower vision, narrower perception. You're not seeing other possibilities. So what I'd like to offer to you is another possibility, another alternative to something that we might naturally do as human beings wanting to protect ourselves and preserve our own well-being, which should happen. That should be a cultivated baseline, but not to go to the extreme of building a fortress around you, around the playground that you're in, and instead realize that there are numerous playgrounds and there are different places that you can go to play, even though we don't necessarily want to leave the nice fun slide that we like to slide down, and we don't necessarily want to leave the lovely swing that we like to swing on. That there are other playgrounds you can play on where that bully doesn't go to. And how that looks like in order to go to a different playground, one is having to realize the different attachments and aversions, which, as you know, is just another form of attachment to the current level that we're at, that current playground. I almost imagine it kind of like a hot air balloon with a basket and all those different lines hooked into the basket. You have to be able to let go and release all those lines in order to be able to step through the doorway to the next playground or another level of playground. Because that's the funny thing about moving dimensionally and through the different levels, is you only can bring yourself. And that can be difficult for us because we want to walk through the doorway, but we also want to bring our slide, and we also want to bring our favorite swing set, and we also want to bring our sandbox, and it just doesn't fit through the door, no matter how much we try. And that becomes a point of struggle that can lead to suffering completely unnecessarily. It's a very simple concept to cut the lines and release the attachment and move through, but it's not easy. You know, simple is not easy. But it's still simple when we take a moment to realize that if we're getting bullied, you know, on the current playground that we're playing at, that we can go to a different one and have just as much fun somewhere else, if not more fun, and more peace, by being willing to let go of the attachments that we have to our current playground and trust and have some faith that that next playground that we walk through the doorway to, it will be different, but will still be just as fun. Is that making sense? Something to just highlight in regards to attacks that we may deal with in our life is, one, not to buy into that storyline of the bully. No matter how big, how hairy, how slimy that bully is, cannot buy into the storyline of, oh, they're scary, they're so, hairy and slimy, that, that storyline that you buy into sets you at a disadvantage. And it's the same thing when you're on the martial arts Aikido mat, dojo mat. When you're faced with multiple attackers, whether it's even just one attacker, and if you've bought into the storyline before the attack has even happened or even begun, that, oh, this person looks kind of big, and oh, I don't know if I can really move around them, and I don't know if I can really divert them, you set yourself up at a disadvantage going into the process, if you will. Really working on, and that's part of the practice, cultivating dispassion, if you will. Neither being attached nor averse, and just looking at that person as a neutral point of redirecting energy or redirecting that individual. Easier said than done, I realize. But it's something that you can play with, and over time, as we learn on this path, whether it's a bully, whether it's just falling on our face, that happens, and it's part of the practice, and we get our bumps and our bruises and we get our scratches, and instead of wailing about it like a little child, when in the beginning it does hurt, and crying can maybe sometimes make you feel better if you're a child, but as we grow into this path, we realize that it just becomes part of the practice. And those become points of growth and lessons to ourselves of how we could have been more intelligent, whether it's dealing with a bully or dealing with an attacker. So remembering not to buy into that storyline of that bully. And another point is realizing that as warriors on this path, death will come for us one day. And when it does, however that may look like, that we're able to have worked on ourselves enough to let go of fear that would naturally arise, and instead allow ourselves to surrender to that moment so presently and so fully that that moment can unfold in the most perfect way, and trusting in that. Any questions on that? I think something to just remember and remind ourselves that this practice that we do is is everything and is our everything, if you will. You know, our practice, as one teacher has stated before, is our protection. It is our nourishment. It is our growth. And that when we practice the practice, that is what is the highest path and also offers the most choices in situations that sometimes feel very dark or gloomy or scary. So let's go ahead and meditate. We'll do 3 songs. So just sitting nice and tall. Just allowing us to enjoy this and be here now. So thank you for coming today. What about off the cushion? Things that you're doing physically, psychically to help allow more light into your life?
The usual, mindfulness. I'm in school right now, so every second I'm thinking about a project, which is really helping. So my mind is always on the MP plan, or always on something for school, or always on something. So I don't give my mind any time
Good.
to think about anything else.
Good.
It just goes directly to there. So I'm focusing more towards specific things, so it doesn't have a chance to think about everything.
Good.
It's working, actually. It's a little spooky, but it's working. Very spooky, let me tell you. But
How about exercise? Body movement?
sometimes, but my body, the back is not happy. So I can do certain exercises, certain, bends and such.
Walking?
Walking a lot. I always walk a lot. And I even try when I'm meditating, moving, but it shifts when I do that, and that's kind of annoying. So I stop doing that. But if I can do rolls as I'm meditating, that sometimes helps, and I absorb more. The way I sit, I absorb more. The string always helps to pull me up. Anything else?
I think what works for me a lot is not thinking of just sitting on the cushion at that time to absorb light. I think of looking at the whole scope of life kind of thing, and each area as a part of the whole.
Okay.
And I ask about the exercise thing specifically because I definitely hear the school being something you can focus your mind and your intelligence into. But then the exercise aspect of it doesn't have to be a marathon or a triathlon, but I've so seen the truth of what Rama has shared about, if you run and you meditate every single day, you can do anything. And I literally have put that sentence into practice in my life just to test it. And it has been amazing. And instead of just being the extremists, I have to run like this many miles or this fast or this, you can tailor it to what your body needs. But every time I'm out there, whether it's just hiking up a little hill and just having some kind of a sweat happen, the movement energetically from the exercise, I can't necessarily speak to what exactly is happening, but I'm so very aware that it helps to assimilate a lot of the practice on top of everything else I'm doing. And I speak to the exercise also because it gets us intelligent ones. You know, we can be so very book smart and we can study and study and study, and that's not necessarily difficult for us because we can do it. Sometimes the exercise thing is the difficult thing. That actually was my Achilles heel, the exercise. I was a nerd. I was a bookworm. You know, I can sit in a library and study all day and it's not an issue. I don't have to ever go outside, quite honestly. But the exercise of getting myself outdoors, being outdoors, fresh air, on top of also moving my body, and then there's a mental strength that comes from that. You know, not just challenging yourself book-wise, but then it's you're hiking up something difficult and your body hurts, or you're tired, you don't want to get out of the house to go exercise. But to push beyond that, to do that, that adds to the practice. When you're sitting and your body's uncomfortable and you're tired, you don't really want to sit. You know, all those come into play to that moment when you're sitting on their cushion, you're like, yes, I want to go for that next. You know, it's not comfortable, yes, but and I'm tired and only got a couple hours to sleep, but I'm going to still sit on that cushion. I think the correlation of exercise, the mentality that goes into that, specifically with how we can be like monk-like and just be indoors and studying, that is my little power pellet that you can take with you. And again, it doesn't have to be anything extreme. It just needs to be for yourself. But if you set that for yourself, that you balance it with your studies, I think it strengthens not just the physical body, but mentally it does something.
But it's more of a opening when I'm sitting. You know what I mean? That's what I'm speaking of. How, or I can explain it. It's how do I open my senses more and be more, so when the light comes in and shines through, my body can take it. You know, I can hold it.
I hear exactly what you're saying about the sitting part, and all I see is running. and I speak to running because I don't want to use the word hate because it's so extreme, but I dislike running uphill. It's hard. And I'm always out of breath. It never feels comfortable. And it's exhausting. It always exhausts my body. But there's one stretch of an uphill there's on a run that I can do. And every time I go up it, I just think, okay, 4x4 slow. And it just hones your senses, mine says at least, into just the next step and breathing and next step and breathing. And everything hurts. And I don't breathe very well running for some reason. I tend to be water animal rather than a land animal, so I feel like I'm hyperventilating. And I'm trying to get up this hill, and it's way far up there. And I say all this to say that when you're working that aspect, it going back to the sitting part, there is that opening, because you can't tighten your system up when you're running uphill. You get stiff and it is painful. You have to constantly settle your system down, and I'm always having to settle my shoulders down to relax, you know, because the more pain and agony I feel as I'm going uphill, I'm like this, I'm running like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I have to say, okay, sure, and while I'm running uphill on top of that, I have to be like, settle, breathe, and I have to draw everything so it's the most relaxed state while I am pushing it at that level to reach up the hill. And it's such a great practice because that is a physical thing that you can do, and I feel like I see tangible things, and then your body knows when it hits that same kind of spot when you're sitting in meditation. You know, it's different, obviously, because you're not running uphill, but there's a similar vein there, that something there. There's something there. Did you have anything to add, Isis?
Yeah, I would say
Please.
you nailed it. So listen to what she's saying, because it's not about just sitting on the cushion. It's about all the other practices. Like even when we were monks and we had our little cell and we'd go into retreat for a year, even in our little cell, we had a little path to walk. And we would walk every day. You know, we'd walk across the floor, across the floor. We would let people could walk upstairs and across. You know, we could do the circle, you know, because it's creating that grounding in your body. And you're trying to experience enlightenment in your body. It's not out of your body. It's in your body. So it's the exercise. And, you know, maybe your body can't run, but it can still walk. So instead of doing the easy walk, look for the hard walk. Just to push yourself, you know, just for the sake of pushing yourself. Just say, hey, body, can you do this? You know, I did that on Sunday. I went out to the desert and there was the mud caves we'd never actually seen. We've driven by them. So we were like, oh, let's actually go check it out. And I had to pull on my inner billy goat. Like, you know, almost straight up. And I'm looking at it like, this is the only path. And so I go up. And then I finally get to the top. And then it's like straight down.
Holy cow.
Like, oh. But it was awesome. I mean, we got in and just the feeling of, you know,
Yes.
pushing. And then also when you're doing your schoolwork, I mean, the marketing plan is such an awesome project because it will help train your mind to hold so much more light. Because what we do with that kind of project is you want to be able to hold the entire plan in your mind all at once. And then at the same time, this is the tricky part.
Yeah,
At
that's
the
the
same,
first part.
yeah. And then at the same time, you're holding the entire plan in your mind. Then to be able to go laser focus into one little area. And at the same time, you're still holding the whole rest of it. And then you can see that one little piece. Because when you can do that, you're building subtle structures in your mind to be able to hold the mandalas of light that come through in meditation. And then physically, you know, just as a project standpoint, it will help you so much in your work because as a project manager, you can see the entire project and you can narrow in on this one little piece. And because you're also holding the entire thing, you can see how that little piece relates in 25 different ways. And, you know, maybe it just needs to be shifted just a little bit like that. And then all of a sudden now it's got, you know, 50 more connections.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing shines brighter.
But when you're physically sitting,
Well, these practices that you do off the cushion will make it possible from when you're physically sitting when you hit that wall.
Yes.
So that wall that you keep coming up against.
it's deteriorating. That's the problem. I've been asking for it to just break for so long, and it is. And I'm going, okay, should we daddy do it? Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah,
All that's
amen.
not to say.
Yes.
Ding, 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 be careful. Because I've been asking for so long, please break, please, and it has. And now I'm like, oh.
Now you need to make sure your body and mind are
I
strong enough
can't
to
Agreed.
handle the flow.
I
And I'm
agree.
like, oh,
Maybe I should have asked that differently.
the flood is
Okay,
coming.
I absolutely second what Isis
Oh
says.
my shit.
And with your structured breaking now, definitely apply the mind, you know, school, and then the body, and that will support the structural breakdown, that it doesn't go into absolute chaos. There's support that comes with that. Things happen.
Yeah. I